Welcome, everybody, to the NFL show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, NFL beat writer for the Grueling Truth, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
All right. You watch any baseball with no fans last night?
I did watch a little bit of the Nationals versus the Yankees before it started getting rained out, and I just turned it off because
So you didn't see the Dodgers cardboard cutout of fans?
No, they had cardboard cutouts too. They fleece fans for cardboard cutouts?
Yeah, it's like $299, and if a ball hits where you were sitting, you actually get the ball if it hits your cutout. I guess people spend an easy way to make some money. All right, today we're going to talk state of the franchise. We're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers, who last year, of course, went to the NFC Championship game and were manhandled by the San Francisco 49ers. They were blown out by the 49ers twice, and they did beat the Seahawks in the divisional title. For the divisional title, and for the sixth time since 2011, they won the division by I think they've won 6 divisions since 2011. But on top of that, they swept the division, and not an easy division to sweep. The Minnesota Vikings are a tough team. The Bears are a little down, but the defense is good. When we look at the Green Bay Packers from last year, I think the thing that stands out the most was how improved their defense was over last year.
The defense was huge for them early on. I think Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. I mean, that was just a phenomenal pass rushing duo. Zadarius Smith, in my opinion, was one of the best players or one of the best defensive players in the entire game last year. I think he was just that dominant. He only had back hit on the highest in the league. Preston Smith, the middle is much more improved than when he was 2 years ago or even 3 years ago. Jair Alexander and Darnell Savage in the secondary, that's a really good duo. I think Adrian Amos helped out a lot as well. That second quarterback spot's a little iffy. Kevin King really isn't the starting caliber player right now. But other than that, I mean, it's a pretty good defense. Yeah, Christian Kirkley this offseason, replacing Blake Martinez, so maybe that's a little bit of an upgrade. So I think the defense is held together pretty nicely, actually, this offseason. I think they'll still be impactful this coming year. I think just if you watch the NFC Championship game, though, they got torched in the middle, which I didn't expect because Kenny Clark's a pretty good interior defensive lineman, but they got torched against the 49ers.
Yeah, and as we always do with the state of the franchise, we'll start at the top, which is Matt LaFleur, who was in his first year. This was a team that you got to figure this is a dream job if you're a coach and Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. But there was friction with Aaron Rodgers and former coach Mike McCarthy, and there were reports there was friction between McCarthy and Rodgers. I think McCarthy and Rodgers. I just screwed that up. LaFleur and Rodgers. And it seemed like they were able to work through every issue that they had. It was a team where I think Aaron Rodgers was kind of allowed to do what he wanted once the season got in, and I think LaFleur backed off. But the question here is, after we talk about the quarterback or the head coach, we're going to talk about the quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers can't be happy that Jordan Love was drafted. Do you think that could be because of some of the friction between the head coach and the quarterback?
Yeah, I don't really know if you're going to put this one on Matt LaFleur. I do agree there were concerns with Matt LaFleur going into last year and his relationship with Aaron Rodgers. I still think there are legitimate concerns about that moving forward. I think Rodgers wants to do his own little thing, and LaFleur has kind of like this new era offensive game plan I don't think Rodgers is going to fully buy into. But I think the Jordan Love situation probably plays more to the front office. I think it was more a front office decision. The general manager made that call from everything I've heard. And, of course, Aaron Rodgers, you can't be happy when that happens. He's got 3 or 4 years left under contract. So Jordan Love, I mean, would be in the last year of his rookie deal pretty much when Aaron Rodgers finishes his next contract. Rodgers has said he's not ready to leave Green Bay yet. He wants to stay there for now. So it's a really weird situation. I think 2 things could happen here. Either Aaron Rodgers gets motivated and plays at an MVP level this coming season. He plays really hard, does everything he can for Green Bay. Or he gets kind of disillusioned with the franchise and ends up kind of falling apart around the middle of the season and end up missing the playoffs. I think one of those 2 scenarios is likely going to happen.
Yeah, and I would think when you look at this, a lot of people will compare this to Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. But I think the situation is vastly different, at least to me. In 2005, Favre was already talking about what turned out to be one of many future retirements. And those 05 Packers, while competitive, hadn't been to the NFC Championship game since 1997. These Packers, on the other hand, reached that height just last season. Rodgers is only 36, and instead of talking about retirement, he's talked about playing into his 40s. So I really don't know what the Green Bay Packers are doing here by picking Jordan Love.
But yeah, it's not like even with Brett Favre playing into your 40s is something that was kind of unheard of, or at least it happened a couple times, but not very consistently. Now we're looking at where Drew Brees is still playing at a high level. Tom Brady's still playing at a high level. We've seen guys play now into their 40s and still be productive quarterbacks recently. So it's not unfathomable that Aaron Rodgers can do the same thing. But Green Bay has now taken a problematic quarterback. Because you and I think both agree that Jordan Love is not a first-round caliber quarterback. And there's some serious concerns that are coming out of college. So they've taken now a problematic quarterback. You've alienated your superstar and your leader, and you have not helped him enough. So I think we said there are concerns with that offense they have not addressed in the draft because they were so busy trying to get their quarterback in the future who isn't even going to be a starter until 4 or 5 years from now.
Yeah, and I think offensively, the guy that really stands out to me, you're going to pick Rodgers as being probably the team MVP, but David Bakhtiari, the left tackle, I think, is maybe the most valuable player on this team right now because you got to keep Aaron Rodgers healthy. And, he's played more than 5,000 offensive snaps over the last 5 seasons. He's allowed just 16 sacks in that span. I think he's one of the better tackles in the NFL. He's a guy that's going to have a great season and stay healthy because they've got to have Aaron Rodgers because I know you kind of feel the same way I do about Jordan Love, but I don't think Jordan Love's ever the answer anywhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Bakhtiari has to stay healthy. And this is a guy who's been an all-pro or first and second team all-pro in each of the last 4 seasons. So this is one of the best left tackles in the game. I think he's largely considered the best left tackle and the most consistent left tackle in terms of pass blocking since Joe Thomas. So he is he's a phenomenal player. I know he's a free agent next offseason, so he wants to stay healthy this year, put up some good tape, and hopefully make a lot of money. But Green Bay needs him this year for sure. He's going to be, I think, 29 years old soon. So he's still pretty young. He should still be in his prime. And they absolutely need him because Aaron Rodgers had some injuries the last 4 or 5 years. And if you lose Aaron Rodgers midway through the season, I mean, that's just you're done. I mean, you can't put Jordan Love in there. And even if you did, Jordan Love's not going to do anything for you. So if you lose Aaron Rodgers, this whole thing falls apart. That offensive line is going to be absolutely crucial to Green Bay repeating as division champs this year.
Yeah, and I think 2 guys that really need to be breakout stars are Rashawn Gary and Darnell Savage. I think Savage was just that last year. He's got big playability. Gary is the guy that, he entered the league with a torn labrum. He raised some eyebrows when he founded his own sports agency prior to the draft, leaving some to question his commitment. He's a gifted athlete, could be a top defender, but I trust Savage more than Gary. But I think for this defense to go to the next level, even though they were one of the best ones, we saw they had some issues at linebacker in the middle of the field against the 49ers. I think Rashawn Gary is a huge key to the defense.
Yeah, I think Gary's a big deal for them if he comes through, but I think there are really legitimate concerns about him. Like you said, he's an athletic playmaker out of Michigan. He has all the physical tools, but even going into the draft, when they selected him with the 12th overall pick, there were concerns about his ability to put it all together because there was some inconsistent tape at college, inconsistent production. And he showed exactly that in his rookie season. He was very inconsistent, didn't get a lot of playing time, 0 starts, only played 24% of the defensive snaps. I mean, that's not a bright spot for your defense. And for me personally, I think Gary's a guy who might never fulfill his potential just based on what he's done the last couple of years. He's been underwhelming. So if you don't get anything out of him, and he was the 12th overall pick, that's harsh. Now, Darnell Savage, on the other hand, I think Savage is already at a borderline Pro Bowl level. He's that good. I think he might even be better than Adrian Elmos, who's obviously a more experienced player. So they're set with the safety positions. I think Jair Alexander is the future Pro Bowler at cornerback. He's a very good player. I think the secondary looks a lot better, and I think Rashawn Gary is a guy who I just don't trust moving forward.
Yeah, and another position, I don't think Gary's ever going to work out there. I think that defense is going to have problems at linebacker. What do you think?
Yeah, I have issues with them at linebacker. I know outside linebacker was Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith. I'm totally fine with that duo. Like I said, one of the best pass rushing groups in football last year. But on the interior, it's Oren Burks is one of your guys, and Christian Kirksey is the other one. Now, I think Kirksey is an upgrade over Blake Martinez, who you had in there last year. Blake Martinez was just awful in pass coverage. And really, he got a lot of tackles, but it wasn't really actual production. A lot of them were kind of gang tackling guys after plays and stuff like that. I think Kirksey's been an upgrade, but he's only played 9 games in the past 2 years. So my concern is what happens if he goes down? suddenly you're playing with interior linebackers who really would be third or fourth strings on any other team. So in my opinion, I think that's a weak spot in terms of depth. That's a weak spot in terms of talent. And I think that linebacker spot could really kill them when it comes to the run game and even covering guys like tight ends.
Yeah, another position I think that they're weak at, or at least thin, is outside of Devontae Adams. Who's going to be the second wide receiver? And, Packer fans were dismayed to put it lightly, when they traded up. I think every Packer fan thought they were going after a wide receiver. Instead, they get Jordan Love. This is a team that runs 11 personnel probably 60% of the time. You need more talent at wide receiver. And I think there's a lot of question marks, especially depth-wise. Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in the NFL. But after him, there's a big drop-off.
I'm sure Aaron Rodgers would probably tell you the same exact thing. He was hoping they would get receiver too. He even said before the draft he would love to have some playmakers alongside him. But, yeah, Devontae Adams, I think he's a top 5 receiver in the NFL at this point, in my opinion. I really love his game. But there have been some injury concerns the last couple of years. He missed 2 games 2014, 1 in 2018, and 4 games this past year. And when he's not healthy, they don't have anyone. I mean, Allen Lazard is the next best guy. I do like Lazard, honestly. I thought he should have been drafted back in, I think it's 2018. He was undrafted out of Iowa State. I like his game, but I don't think he's a wide receiver 2. I think he's more wide receiver 3 or 4. There really isn't any depth there. I mean, you got Valdez-Scanling's down there. He had Devin Funchess. Devin Funchess got hurt, I'm pretty sure, missed almost all last year. And even when Funchess is healthy, he's not a reliable number 2 option. He's probably a 3 or 4. So I look at the Packers roster. I see one superstar receiver. I see a bunch of 3 or 4s. I don't think the depth phenomenal. I don't think they have enough around Aaron Rodgers to really bring out all of his potential at this point. I think wide receiver is the biggest hole. And in a draft class loaded with probably the best wide receiver potential since 2014, the Green Bay Packers did not draft a wide receiver.
All right, what was your take on drafting A.J. Dillon in round 2?
And that tells me they're planning for the future because Jamal Williams, I'm pretty sure, and Aaron Jones are both free agents after this coming season. They are not planning on re-signing either of those guys, or at least not Aaron Jones. They're not going to give a big payday to a player who has been underpaid for years because if I recall, he was a 4th or 5th round pick. He was pretty low down there. He's been underpaid. He played at a Pro Bowl level this past year. He had 16 rushing touchdowns, which was the most in the NFL, 19 total touchdowns, which tied Christian McCaffrey. So you got those scenarios where he's a Pro Bowl caliber player. He's been underpaid. And now I think Green Bay's trying to avoid paying him this summer by drafting a guy like A.J. Dillon. It's not something that's going to immediately help them this year. They're planning for the future.
Yeah. And I think another thing people don't even realize, the Packers have gone 3 consecutive seasons without ranking in the top 10 in scoring offense for the first time since 1990 through 92. The offense has some issues. And offensive line-wise, what's your take? I think they're good at tackle. The interior line bothers me or worries me a little bit.
Yeah, guys like Lane Taylor and Billy Turner, the guards, are kind of concerning. I don't think they're as good as you would see in some other teams who have really just built out their entire offensive lines. So I have some issues there. Although I think I can't say his first name, Elton Jenkins, there we go, was a second-round pick from last year. He's pretty good at guard. I think he's going to be a long-term starter for them. I think he's a reliable player. But I do think the interior of that line, there are just some holes there. I think Ricky Wagner at right tackle and David Bakhtiari at left tackle, that's phenomenal. But the interior there, like I said, there are concerns there. And like I said, with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's had some injuries the last 4 or 5 years, you really can't afford to have a weak interior offensive line. There's some guys get pushed back into him if a center or a guard steps on his foot, or even if someone gets a free shot at him. You don't really know if he's going to get back up. So I think there are serious concerns about the interior offensive line, and even running the ball between the tackles, I think could be a concern this coming season.
Yeah, when you look at this division, I think the Lions could be improved. The Bears, if Nick Foles is playing, gets the job instead of Trubisky, they're dangerous. The Vikings are a dangerous football team. So this is not an easy division for the Packers to win. And I think the key here is distractions. And I think Jordan Love's presence, if they can keep that from being a distraction, this team can win the division. But when you look at him being a Super Bowl contender, I just don't see the depth. I don't see linebackers, wide receivers. This is not a complete football team. This is a football team that has enough talent to win 10 to 12 games and make the playoffs because they've got Aaron Rodgers guiding them. But I don't see a team that can really go and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, this team is really, I think, where almost, I think, say Seattle Seahawks were there about 2 years ago or a year ago. This is about where Seattle was, where they had that superstar quarterback. They had some playmakers, but they just didn't have the full package. I think that's right about where the Green Bay is at this point. I mean, you talk about the Jordan Love distraction. It's not just that. I mean, drafting A.J. Dillon, that's got to sit in the mind of guys like Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams who are hoping to get extensions from the Green Bay Packers this year. I mean, if you draft someone like that, that's basically telling your running backs, "Hey, we're not gonna pick you up here." So I think there's a lot of distractions brought in by what they did in this past draft instead of actually improving the team. And then even like you said, like tight ends, a huge hole. Mercedes Lewis is your top tight end, and Mercedes Lewis was maybe a peak maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, you're at a point where you just don't have the receiving options to capitalize on Aaron Rodgers. You're wasting his prime or what's left of his prime at this point. And defensively, you've got a framework there, but you don't have the full package yet. You're not going to be a 49ers team. You're not going to be a Baltimore team or a Pittsburgh team. You're not going to be able to match those kind of defenses. So for me, I think this is a team that has pieces, but they're just a long shot away from actually being a team I would consider playoff contenders. Although I didn't think they would go – I didn't think they were going to end up going 13-3 last year, and they ended up doing that, I'm pretty sure. So it was surprising how well they performed last year. I don't see them repeating it, though. I just don't think there's any way for them to possibly get back to a 13-3 record.
All right, and real quick NFL news. The one thing that does stand out to me is the NFL is gathering its owners, general managers, and head coaches for a call today to update on the negotiations with, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. And when you look at this, I mean, this is another time where the NFL was not prepared. And now they're talking about even stopping people from going to camp right now until this is taken care of.
I mean, if you had given the NFL a perfect scenario, you told them there's going to be a global pandemic, how would you want it to play out? Let's say, we'll let it start right after the Super Bowl, right after we got our biggest game of the year out of the way, and then we have a full offseason to plan ahead and decide what we're going to do. How do you not have any plans in place? Because I understand that some people view COVID-19 with varying degrees of seriousness, but at the same point, how do you not have plans in place when you've had months of time to prepare? It's like they've just been ignoring this whole thing and just not even thinking about it. I mean, I don't understand how you could go through all this time with all these other leagues who are trying to scramble to get their seasons back on track, and you just don't have a plan. You haven't even talked to the players. So now they're trying to rush this through in the last week and a half, and we're seeing that's why they're scheduling these emergency meetings, just that they don't have the time to set this all up now.
Well, they were busy looking up the Black National Anthem and all that stuff too, though. You got to give them that.
But at the same point, you got to focus on getting your players ready to get back into camp. You got to get stuff going here. I mean, you can always, like the NFL, we've talked about the NFL before. They're not taking social matters all that seriously all the time. So for them, I mean, they'll figure something out for that kind of stuff. But I mean, their really main focus has to be at this point is getting guys back on the field because they're going to take a multi-billion-dollar shortfall as it is.
All right, Sam. Anything else before we wrap it up?
Yeah, what do you think about Washington? They're running with the name Washington Football Team for apparently for the near future. They haven't chosen a new mascot or a new logo or anything like that. What do you think about that?
I don't know. Is that because Daniel Snyder's under fire right now and may not be with the team, so they want the new owner to be able to pick the name, or what?
Hopefully that's a scenario. That would probably be the best case for the NFL, but I mean, I don't know what the scenario is. How do you? Again, there's no plan in place. I don't know how you have a name that's been under fire for 30 years and you don't even have any kind of semblance of a backup plan for if you have to change the name. And then how have you've taken the name and the logo down, but then you haven't planned ahead to put something up in place of that in time for the season. So I don't know what you're going to do. I thought they would use this as like a new marketing opportunity to get new merchandise out there to players and to teams and to fans, but it kind of just faltered here and punted on it. So I don't really know what they're doing. I don't know what their long-term plans are for that franchise.
But doesn't this play into Daniel Snyder's entire reign in Washington, where it looks like he doesn't know what he's doing? He's unprepared. And when something happens, he doesn't know what to do. I mean, this is pretty much his MO ever since he's took over ownership at his team a couple decades ago.
Yeah, I mean, it is typical. I'm not surprised this is happening in Washington. This doesn't shock me that this is the scenario. But at the same point, it's kind of like I can't believe an NFL franchise, one of the franchises, one of the biggest sports leagues in the world, is not going to have like a mascot or a name this coming year because they couldn't think of one, because they got surprised when they had to get rid of their previous one.
Well, I mean, nobody had ever brought up them changing the name before, so you can see why it caught them by shock.
Oh yeah, totally blindsided them there. Had no idea
Yeah.
it was going to happen.
Yeah, that's just been being brought up since like 1970 or so. But all right, Sam, tell everybody where to find you on the internet.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Sam_Teets33. I'm constantly putting together new articles, polls, and stats, so feel free to go check those places out.
All right, guys, you can follow me at Grueling Truth. Make sure you go check out our Facebook page where tonight, a little after 11, we'll have Game 3 to 1988 World Series, Sam. The Dodgers and the A's, I believe it was. And we got boxing on there, got a little bit of everything. We got our articles, which Sam writes articles for us too. So make sure you follow Sam, follow us at Grueling Truth. You can hear us live Sunday night for Survive and Advance with myself and Steve Risley at 7 o'clock. We also have the Old Time Boxing Show, which will be Sunday at 1 o'clock. Me and Christopher Shelton will look back at the career of former heavyweight contender George Chuvalo. And then Monday, I assume, Sam, we will be back with another NFL show.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So for now, for Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak. All right. We didn't share that.